Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello there. Man, have we made progress, because just 30 years ago, they wouldn't have said, and now your host. They would have said, and now your hostess. And notice I'm saying they about clearly a woman. I'm telling you, keeping up, just keeping up. I happened to mention a niece of mine the other night to somebody, and I said, she's an actress. And then I thought, oh my God, I can't believe I said actress, because that word too now is, although, tell that to the Oscars, but actor is not generic, not gender specific, it's whatever. Anyway, good morning at you, and here we are. Tomorrow, and this hasn't, you know what? Is it true? Is tomorrow the first Thursday that I've pledged to do? Is that the last Thursday of the month? Tomorrow? Let me check. It just occurred to me that maybe I have to do this throwback Thursdays. No. Yeah. No. It's next Thursday. Okay. I was just looking at the date. It's next Thursday. All right. Well, good. That gives me more time to come up with stuff that isn't, potential suicide material. God. So, guys, big shock. Corey O'Connor won. Just saying. But that does make the last two Democratic primaries in Pittsburgh interesting, in that in both, an incumbent mayor was defeated, Peduto 4 years ago, and now the guy who defeated him, Gainey, 4 years later. And while now this might not seem an unusual event, 2 in a row, my understanding, I think I read somewhere, that it hadn't happened in about 1 million years. I exaggerate only slightly. So that once a mayor was in, dislodging them in a primary was something that just wasn't done. And I suspect that bespeaks a Democratic Party that has an apparatus that is in control, whose voters are, pretty much aligned. And I think the fact that we now have 2 in a row that were thrown out by Democratic voters shows a volatility, without a doubt, in the voter base of the Democratic Party. We know that's true nationally, and I suspect I was taking issue the other day with a New York Times piece that was suggesting that. But I do think, the more I've thought about it, that the fact that we have now done twice in 4 years what Pittsburgh Democratic voters never did before says something's changed. And we are an unhappy party with no clear consensus of who we are, what we are, and what we want, I think. So there's that. And man, like if in 4 years O'Connor gets thrown out, then you'll know. So I have to tell you this one little. No, I have a few. I I only saw still photos of the two candidates and their events last night, and I was struck. I mean, it's always the case. The winners, the pictures from their event are always filled with smiles and great joy, and the losers not so much. But I was really struck by the faces of the people pictured at Mayor Gainey's event. I mean, they were they were crying, they were distraught, they were feeling a great deal of pain. And it was very hard to look at those faces. The other thing that stood out was that the faces I'm talking about were all black. Now, that was an unhappy indication of something else. Um, and come to think of it, I'm not sure the faces I saw at O'Connor's weren't all white. This is such a segregated city. It's, and if it's that, then, black mayors aren't going to be something we're going to see a lot. How much racism figures here in how people perceive a black leader as opposed to a white leader. Those are things that are hard to pinpoint, but this town is very racist. I just, this country is very racist. Why wouldn't this town be racist? But I told you many times that when I moved here 45 years ago, I was struck by two things. The racism, just sort of overt, that I saw. And this would be 1980. Right? And then the fact that Pittsburgh it felt like it was 1965 here in terms of women's progress. I had left Madison, Wisconsin, where I had been a woman, and I came to Pittsburgh and immediately was reduced to a girl. Everybody called me a girl. No other women called me a girl. Girls, the word woman was never uttered. And so Pittsburgh seemed a place that was stuck to me in many ways. And yet I fell in love with it. How's that work? Milton. Milton says, I love my hometown. That's Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh is the most racist city north of the Mason-Dixon. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. And I don't know why or what, but yeah, yeah, that's all I have to say. So, how much Gainey's the perception of Gainey was colored by his skin color. We will never know. But those of us with pretty good bigotry monitors, like gaydar or Jews who can, just sense when someone's uncomfortable with our Jewishness, black folks who have certain tells immediately. I suspect most black people just assume that 99.9% of whites are racist. And why shouldn't they? So there you have it. That's my sad look. I wish Corey O'Connor well. As I've said, I think he's a good man. I just hope he's able to be a good mayor for all the people, not just the guys who lined his pockets. As you know, I'm so sick of those guys, I can't see straight. So, there's only one other little item I have to say about all that. I had friends over last night, and one, knowing my perambulating abilities are not great these days, said, I'll take Blue for a walk. And I said, oh man, thank you. And so out the door he went with my dog. And this would be about 8 o'clock, I think. And off he went. And when he came back, he was carrying a bag of my dog's excrement. And he walked in and proceeded toward my kitchen, where his wife screamed from the living room, "Don't throw that in her garbage!" Whereupon he turned and I said, "There's a little can that I keep near the front door when you walk in." I greet visitors to my house with a can of dog shit. It's on the front porch. So out he went to deposit it, and while he left, he said, "I have a story about this dog poop." So we waited, and he said, the poop in question was deposited on public school grounds. I said, there are signs posted everywhere not to let dogs do that on school property. And he starts protesting. Well, it was right next to the sidewalk off the and this and that. And actually, I have to admit, I have a picture of my dog peeing on one of those signs. So, he said, I had picked it, I was picking it up, he said, and a car was pulling out of the parking lot of the school. And they rolled down the window as I stood up with this bag of poop. And he said, I thought it was somebody who was going to yell at him. It was Corey O'Connor. Believe me, he was a surprise. So he's standing there with my dog's poop in his hands, and Corey O'Connor, who knows him, was saying hi, and my friend heads toward the car with his right hand extended, but there's a bag of blue poop in it. I believe he made a hasty exchange. I'm not sure, but he shook hands with him and whatever. And this, so my guess is that I don't know if O'Connor lives around here because that school is where I would vote if I still voted in person. And either he was voting late, although they always vote early, or he was just making a quick stop, maybe shaking hands for the last stragglers who went in. I have no idea. But he was obviously heading off to his soon to be victory party. So I just had to share with you this little, I'm sure you won't be reading that anywhere in the coverage of the soon to be mayor's comings and goings on election day, but I did want to, just run that one by you. Okay. All right. Well, now, guys, all right, let's do a quick obit just to keep us losing our minds. I'm going to, yeah, cheers. I'm going to George Wendt, who's now Wendt. I never was a sitcom watcher, but I have to admit, of all sitcoms, I think, see more of that than many others. Because I really am sort of familiar with the cast, and I don't see how that would happen if I wasn't watching it on occasion, because I just was never into the form. I don't know why. The 30 minutes of canned, easy laughter and set pieces, and I don't know. Or I'm just a grump. I have not a clue. Um, so George Wendt is from Chicago. Man, Chicago's having it seems like everybody's from Chicago these days. We got popes, we got actors. I don't know who else I'm thinking of. Um, and he went to work at a place in Chicago that's given rise to a lot of. He was a janitor, but it gives rise to a lot of people, and that's Second City. My niece was did a little time at Second City. I know there is a doctor here in Pittsburgh, Dr. Deb Gilboa, who before she became a doctor was, I believe, the stage manager at Second City in Chicago. And when she was there, she was working with, that's when Steve Carell was there, when, damn it, another biggie of that time, um, blanking, whatever. But yeah, so there's a lot of, I don't know. I don't know why. I feel like I have like a lot of personal connection with Second City. And I've been there. I mean, I've gone there to see improv. But that's where George was. And then eventually he, gave it a try himself and he was successful. And this was after, I mean, he was sweeping the floors there after he'd gone to college, which of course happens to a lot of people. He he first matriculated uh, to Notre Dame. He went to yeah, Notre Dame, South Bend, Indiana, and it is South Bend, Indiana, isn't it? But his career there was sort of like you'd expect from a guy who ends up playing Norm on Cheers. Um, he it says in his obit he attended the University of Notre Dame, but without distinction. The next line says he dropped out with a 0.0 grade point average. I can't even imagine how you pull something like that off. I mean, just to get in, you had to, zero. He must not have never even attended a class. And then he recovered a little bit, and he did earn a degree from Rockhurst University in Kansas City. Never heard of it. But, so, whatever. George went. It's hard to imagine a character that was probably liked by everybody. I think in the obit he says something like he was liked by everybody but the mothers against drunk driving, which I guess would be the case. Okay, so now back to reality. Well, but back to the reality that keeps me awake at night. And I just have a few things that some of the things that have kept me awake at night that I haven't bothered you with, but that I just want to note. I mean, how the clown car, and they ain't funny, how the clown car just continues crashing into every norm, bypassing every barricade, destruction in its wake. And there was a piece in the paper today that I was I found, again, the headline too distressing to read it. But it was about the fact that if you look more closely at our fellow Americans who, when asked, say they approve of the clown car and what it's doing, and that is about, things vary a little bit, but we'll put it at 42%, which is a frighteningly high number to me. 42% look at this and say, yeah, you go. And the story was about that if you quiz those people further after they say, yeah, I like them, and then you ask about specifics that he's done, and their reaction is, what? So I think the headline says something about low information voters, and that Trump has always done very well with low information voters. So low information is that sounds like a woke kind of a term, It does, doesn't it? It's a nice way of saying stupid. Well, that's not really the right. Low information is a nice way of saying ignorant or disinterested or clueless or whatever. People who simply do not pay any attention to what their government is doing, and yet, for some reason, they show up and use their vote to put people into these positions and then have no interest in seeing what it is they do. I guess they just go based on whatever their friends are saying or whatever Fox News blaring in the background is saying. So, but they don't know anything. I mean, they literally, when asked about the big stories in the last 3 months, they don't know. So I mean, technically, it seems that they shouldn't even be asked the question, "Do you approve?" I mean, if you don't know what he's been doing, how can you say yay or nay? But so it occurred to me that the ignorance, the lack of attention of so many Americans to what is happening is again, one of the things that keeps me awake at night. So I'm just going to, if any of them are listening, which they're not, here's just a few things, really. These are just little things I plucked from the last, I don't know, week, maybe 5 days. I mean, even just yesterday. Was it just yesterday? There were a whole bunch of Congresses in session, the Republican controlled Congress. And they're doing what they do. They're holding, hearings at which they grandstand for the cameras and do next to nothing. But over in the House of Representatives, Nancy Mace, who chairs this subcommittee, the House Cybersecurity, Information Technology, and Government Innovation Subcommittee. Whoa! I mean, that's some heavy duty territory. That's Nancy Mace, Republican of South Carolina, who's in charge. And she spent that hearing accusing again, she's done this before, her ex-fiancee and other men of sexually abusing her. You can't make it up. But what I'm about to say next is even more, you can't make it up. She exhibited, and they're doing this a lot. They have posters, they've got pictures, they do stuff now because, again, they're grandstanding. They're trying to get on TV. And did this make it? I guess it couldn't. I don't know. Nancy Mace, the chair of the committee that's supposed to be looking into cybersecurity and government innovation, showed naked photos of herself. I pause because it's hard to talk when your mouth is hanging open, and it's not the first time I've heard this or seen it in print. She showed naked pictures of herself and other women, and it was, she said, these were pictures that were taken without her knowledge or consent. So her point was that she and these other women were victims in this. Yeah, okay, fine. I mean, she was on the House floor a few months ago doing an entire speech about all of this, to which her fellow members of Congress sat in again, absolute astonishment and disbelief. Her ex-fiance, the men, other men that she's pulled into this, have all protested their innocence, and one is suing her for defamation. She's able to do this nonsense, she says, because of the Constitution's speech and debate clause, that she's legally protected from bringing up anything she wants, and it can't be considered slander or anything else, and she can show naked pictures of herself or whatever. I don't know. Okay, that was what was going on in one Republican-led subcommittee. I think that was yesterday. Who knows? And then you have other members of the clown contingent who were, I believe, over in the, I don't know, it's just in the Senate, I think. You have the perennial clown, RFK Jr. He was there, and I think I mentioned to you, I don't know how much publicity it's getting. There's a big lead in the water problem in Milwaukee that is closing schools there, and the levels off the charts, and not knowing how many children who've been drinking that water are affected, impacted. It is akin to what happened in Flint, Michigan. And in cases like that, the federal government moves in. And that would be under RFK Jr.'s purview. So he was being asked about that. And Kennedy said, yeah, we have a team in Milwaukee and we're giving laboratory support and we're doing the analytics and we're working with the health department there. Those are all lies. The health department in Milwaukee says, what? They are not. We haven't seen him. Here's the head. The city of Milwaukee Health Department is receiving any federal epidemiological or analytical support relating to this lead crisis. In fact, our formal aid request was denied. Earlier, Milwaukee's health commissioner had taken to the airwaves to say that, we are in crisis here, and the CDC's entire team working on childhood lead exposure has been laid off. These were the best and brightest in the country in this area about childhood lead poisoning, and they're all gone. RFK pleaded ignorance throughout and lied the rest of the time. And at the end of that particular hearing, Senator from Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin, said to Kennedy, there are no staff on the ground in Milwaukee to address the lead exposure in schools, just for your information. All right. But see, low information voters will tell you, dang, that Donald Trump. What we need in there is a businessman, somebody who knows how to get things done. And he's getting things done. And just one more. This is just from the Congress. This is our mind-blowing Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, the puppy killer. Yeah. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem was testifying before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. And damn if that senator from New Hampshire, Maggie Hassan, and of course it'd be a Democrat, didn't ask Noem to define habeas corpus. And here is her response. Habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country. Guys, that is so not what it is. In fact, it's pretty much the exact opposite. Pretty much the exact opposite. So, Senator Hassan said, no, habeas corpus is the legal principle that requires that the government provide a public reason for detaining and imprisoning people. And if not for that protection, the government could simply arrest people, including American citizens, and hold them indefinitely for no reason. Exactly what this administration is doing. Habeas corpus, said the senator to the puppy killer, is the foundational right that separates free societies from police states like North Korea. Oh my God in heaven. And then there was this, it's hard to keep up with all the legal stuff where federal judges are saying to Trump, you can't do that. And I'm putting a hold on that. And then his emergency appeals to the Supreme Court. And at times the court has said, no, you really can't do that. But at other times the court has said, well, we'll let your order stand, but you need to come back and explain, So they've given them a little bit, they've given them wiggle room. And it's hard for me to keep track of what the hell is going on. One of the more recent ones was he's now sending people. Well, I mentioned this the other day. They're grabbing people off the street, and as we now know, this could be some totally innocent soul. They're grabbing people off the street and sending them, as we know, to this hellhole in El Salvador, but they're also now they were going to send them to Libya, and I think that's one of the things that got scotched. But then they came up with Sudan. Now, if you want another hellhole, Sudan would be the place. That is a country where people are starving to death, where there is so much civil horror going on, people being mowed down in the streets, famine, and a new civil war about to break out. And he's now intending to ship people plucked off the street to Sudan. Now, understand, these are not people from Sudan. These are people who might be from, I don't know, somewhere in Asia, maybe in South America. And a judge, I think yesterday, said, no, you can't do that. That's illegal. It's unconstitutional. However, it turns out that it has now been confirmed that at least one, now the confirmation that at least one means, I'm sorry, where there's smoke, there's fire, but at least one poor soul who had, God knows how, gotten his way from Myanmar to the United States had been plucked and dropped off in Sudan. A woman from Vietnam has reported that her husband seems to have disappeared, along with 10 other people. And her husband managed to get her information that he had heard they were being shipped to Sudan. Now, this would be in complete violation of a federal judge's order that they were not to do this, to pluck people off the street and deport them to countries where they are just then, they're disappeared. And so here again, I mean, these are all, every single instance would have gotten any other president impeached in a week. And now it turns out that Trump has plans to spend up to $250 million that are earmarked for foreign assistance. This is supposed to go for us helping people in other countries. But we don't do that anymore. He's instead taking that money and he's using it to remove people who are here and send them back. People who are here because they fled from active combat zones. I'm talking about people who were let in under a program where we do let people we've got Ukrainians here. We've got Haitians here. And they fled for their lives amid violence in their home countries. And Trump is about to send them back. And along with the Ukrainians and Haitians, we got us some Afghans, people who probably helped us, our troops there. He's also looking at Palestinians who've escaped the horror of Gaza. And he's going to send them back. Libyans, Sudanese, Syrians, Yemenis, all could be targeted. They're saying this is one of those voluntary deport programs where if they go back, they'll write them a check for $1,000. God almighty. Okay, just a few others. This one chilled me. One of the reasons that Trump says he can do all this and is doing it is because we are a nation under attack. I mean, he's been using that line for over a decade now. We are invaded. We have been invaded by hordes of murderers and rapists who now somehow are, I don't know, they're cooking our food, they're looking after our children, they're doing all the landscaping and roofing. I don't know, but these murderers and rapists that we're being invaded by, he has said that is why he is able to invoke the Alien Enemies Act, that these alien enemies have invaded us, and damn, he's using that. And this is the one where the Supreme Court said, I don't think this is an invasion like the Constitution is referring. They were referring more to D-Day or Pearl Harbor, an invasion. And what Trump did when there was pushback is they told all the intelligence agencies, of which there are about 7,000, to prove that this was an invasion, that this was something cooked up by the Venezuelan government using a Venezuelan gang to literally do an invasion of the United States. And all of our intelligence uh, agencies put their best analysts on this, and not one, not a single one, could come up with any information that buttressed this fanciful story that Trump was using. And so, I guess this one guy who's considered one of the best analysts in the business has been with the CIA for 100 years. He was told to redo his assessment. The director of national intelligence told him, "Hey, baby, this is unacceptable what you came up with. You redo that assessment of the relationship between the Venezuelan government and this gang, because you've undercut our justification for snatching all these people off the street and sending them to hellholes all over the world." And I'm not sure, but I think this guy's gone now. Now, if you have a government that refuses to accept the assessments of its own intelligence analysts who work, you understand, for Republican presidents, Democratic presidents, they're there. Those are the guys who know how to do this stuff. And they tell them, well, here's what's happening. And then this president said, no, I can't accept that. Here's what's happening. Whatever story I make up is what's happening. And guys, what that means is we ain't going to be safe. And people who are real Americans would not do this kind of thing. So they'll leave. And we'll have more clowns and incompetents put in these positions. And then we got the intimidation crap that they're doing. They're going to charge this New Jersey congresswoman apparently for assaulting some ICE people. I've seen the video. She didn't assault anybody. If anything, the video shows her being jostled and her doing what anyone would in that situation, putting her arms up. And I guess as she put her arm up, one of her elbows contacted this masked SOB. And she was there in an official capacity because Congress has the right to look into these facilities. It was outside of an ICE detention facility. So they're going to go after her. That's an attempt. So now they're going to be arrested. They've arrested a judge in Milwaukee. They're arresting now this congresswoman. They arrested the mayor of Newark. And then, all of a sudden, maybe he didn't get as much attention. He's released. And the initial hysterical charges against him for trespass and all kinds of stuff have been dropped because he didn't. And this is all this crap that, Fox News and the other right-wing media grab up. We're in a true autocracy. This is what autocracies are, where you go after the judges that aren't finding, aren't deciding cases like you want them to. You go after members of an opposition party, and you arrest them, and you try them, and you don't even have to have a case. It's intimidation, saying, you think we won't? We will. And in all of these cases, they're going to lose. Just as when they go to any court, they lose because they're committing crimes 500 times a day. If there is an invasion of criminals in our country, it's our own government. God almighty. And then Comey, former FBI secretary who Trump knocked off in his first term, they grabbed Comey, brought him in for questioning because he put on social media a picture he took at the beach of some shells that had been, put together to say 8647. 86 meaning to remove. I think in police parlance, 8647 mean remove Trump, which is certainly something I would agree. And he posted that, which seems a little infantile and stupid. And come on, let other people do that. You're the former FBI director. You don't have to. But again, the puppy killer, Kristi Noem, sicked the Secret Service on him. And they brought him in. He's since apologized, taken it down. And if that weren't enough, our director of national intelligence, that would be Tulsi Gabbard, went on Fox News to say that Comey should be jailed. Trump goes on Fox News and tells Brett Baier that he said Comey was calling for him to be assassinated. He's a dirty cop, said the president. He's a dirty cop. Now, so if you're a low information voter and you don't follow this stuff, maybe if you're a low information voter, you don't even know that this just isn't what happens in America. This kind of shit isn't normal. You wouldn't even know that because you wouldn't know it was normal. And you always wonder, they want to get rid of the Department of Education. They want to starve public education. And what? To make us stupid. Because they know stupid voters vote for them. They're easily misled. And on the intimidation level, now that the producer, longtime award-winning producer over at 60 Minutes, has left because he said his work is being interfered with now. Well, his boss, the head of CBS News, has been told to exit. And all of this because Paramount, which owns CBS, is trying to get some deal that they need government sign off on, where they're going to make a bunch of money selling, I don't know what, selling Paramount to some other. I don't give a shit. But it is, again, it's the oligarch game of these billionaires getting more billions, and they're being shaken down by Trump, who's accused CBS of slandering him, which again would not hold up in a court. But Paramount is going to cave and give him, what is it? What's he asking for? I mean, I can't even remember. The numbers are so outrageous. Um, and they'll pay him because that's what you do when you have a totally corrupted authoritarian government. You pay him, and then you get your whatever it is you had wanted. You get to do your merger. Give me 40 million, give me 40 billion. I don't know what the hell it is. And okay, I guess maybe we'll sign off on it. Otherwise, I might threaten to sue you again. And you've seen, news organization after news organization cave to him. You've seen the Washington Post, owned by another gazillionaire, cave and change their editorial stance because of these threats. And if it's not apparent to somebody that our democracy is is going down the tubes, then calling you low information is way too nice a term. Again, I will say that sounds like a really woke term. Um, there is a piece that I read that is so filled with quotes um, of people who historians and others who are just oh, it starts with this quote from the federal judge Ludwig, who, as I always preface by saying, he's one of the most conservative federal justices, um, and he early on was using the kind of language that you would expect somebody like me to use. The sky is falling. It's over. He's destroying this country. And he recently wrote a piece. I shared some of it with you. And he's talking about the destruction of this president. He calls him a president who has intentionally and deliberately set out to destroy literally every institution in America, up to and including American democracy and the rule of law. And someone else picks up on this and is doing a story and goes to other scholars of the presidency to evaluate whether or not, Trump's, the wreckage that is occurring, is taking down everything, including the presidency itself. And some of the quotes from these historians are just, could someone tell these low information voters a few of these things if they could even comprehend them? Here's one, the guy from Princeton. Catastrophic, may never be completely repaired. There's no precedent, not even close. This is another one. Even to raise the question that is to minimize the crisis we're in. His closest allies intended chaos wrought by this destruction, which helps advance their reactionary programs. Chaos allows him to expand his governing by emergency powers. And that is what he's using. So therefore, we're under invasion. I gotta declare an emergency. He's done that over and over, declaring emergencies, which gives him power that he really doesn't have, because the emergencies he's declaring are bogus. But what ultimately he can do with these emergency orders is declare martial law. And if you think we're going to get through this without that happening, I think you're dreaming. This one guy says, presidential power in this country has expanded at periods in our history of great crisis. The Civil War, World War I, the Depression, World War II, and 9/11. Those are all times when we have seen the Congress allow the executive to have more power. But this guy goes on to say, but there's no similar objective crisis facing us now. So Trump had to declare one. From the minute he stepped on the stage, he was talking about an invasion. He says it is, the metaphor is something like an arsonist who then rushes to put out the fire he started, starts the fire so that he can then come in and use that fire to become a hero. So just want to say, Russ Belt says, I wish the word woke would just die already. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Oh, the words they're destroying too. Man. All right, well, that's it. I thought I was going to give you this, tomorrow is Throwback Thursday, but it ain't. It'll just be more horror. I'm telling you. I don't know. I'll try to. I look. I swear to God, I look. I look for stuff. Anyway, I'm done. I'll see you tomorrow. Stay dry.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.